For those of you that are on YouTube and the conference call, you missed the chortles and chuckles of the robust number of 75 that we have here this afternoon at Austin's little, now for a word from our sponsor. But yes, we do have a robust crowd here this afternoon. There are seats closer to the front for those of you coming in the back. You know, if you can't laugh at life, what's the point? We have a grand total of 4, 6, 7. Is that 7? We have a grand total of 7 here this afternoon. But you know what? It's all good. It is all good no matter what. And we're thankful that for those that have joined us on YouTube. And I have something that I was going to do, but I needed a few more people. So I'm going to punt. We're going to do something a little bit different. Recently, Linda and I got some really good news. And it was news that came to us a long time later, about 25 years after the fact. And you know how Austin's been talking to us about soft touches? You know, just these slight little things you do for people. Well, you never know when something like that is going to turn out to be something good. And you don't know how long it's going to take before you realize what it is you've done. But we got word recently about what Austin would equate as a soft touch. And I'm not talking about somebody calling for money and, you know, that type of thing. But it was something that we've ever since we become Christians, we've tried to do. And that is to make ourselves available to any who has a need for whatever reason, and to treat people with kindness and grace and understanding. And like I've said before, I come off kind of gruff, but really I'm not. Definitely Linda is not. But what we heard is that some of the acts of kindness that we did 25 years ago played a role in an individual coming back into a relationship with Christ. The individual indicated how far afield they had gone. And that as they were beginning to contemplate life, contemplate where they were, they realized some of the things that we had done. And they realized it was because we were Christians. And they wanted that to have an impact on their life. And they wanted us to know it. But it hasn't been the only time. There have been other times as well. We've had individuals who've reached out and told us that they were involved in something, and that members of our family were blamed wrongly, and that how we didn't throw a fit even though we knew the truth. And we continued to accept them and continued to go on. And then that person had to call us years later and say, you know what, I lied to you that night. And I remember that person calling. And I said, I know. And that person said, well, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you throw a fit? There's no need to. Because I knew that you knew and others knew what was going on. But I appreciate you acknowledging it. See, what we do today, how we treat people today, we may not see an end result tomorrow or a year from now. But yet what we do will have an impact on people's lives. Now, we've been talking about David on Sunday morning and talking about the things he went through early on in his life, and now we're building, looking progressively. We're looking at some of his writings. But even as we're going through this, I'm mindful of his impact. And that impact that he had, well, on all of mankind. There are very few people that aren't aware of, at least in Occidental society, that aren't aware of the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. They hear that. They know. They hear other things. And they know that it has a basis in those things of a spiritual nature. Now, David then touches the lives of so many. Fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. People know that. People know of the writings of Solomon, and they know the writings of David. David, Solomon's father, influenced Solomon and taught Solomon wondrous things. Solomon, as he writes Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, he writes really amazing things because he's writing from a standpoint of what he had been taught. I think it's kind of interesting that in my lifetime, things that I learned as a child come back, and I'm not going to say haunt me, but come back and visit me. When I first got involved in the Multiple Sclerosis Society, I was taken to meet somebody who lives here in the Valley. It's actually two somebodies. But one really resonated with me because I was a Mouseketeer growing up. I would sit afternoons and sing the Mickey Mouse song. But what I liked even more than the Mickey Mouse song was when Jimmy Dodd would get out the mouse guitar and he would play the little chords that led up to Proverbs, Proverbs, they're so true. Proverbs tell us all what to do. Proverbs help us all to be better Mouseketeers. Well, when I walked into her house that day, accompanied by a couple other people from the MS Society, I about fell to the floor because I was introduced to, hold your breath, Annette Funicello. And with me that day was Terry Garr, who also has MS. But even as I was there and we were talking about issues of multiple sclerosis, things of that nature, my mind went to various things I learned from Proverbs, Proverbs, they're so true. Because every so often on that program, they would go back and look at a proverb out of the book of Proverbs that Solomon had written, that undoubtedly that David had taught him. And so the Bible, when you look at it, is masterful in the way that it touches and touches us in so many different ways. I want us to go into the book of Psalms. And I want us to look at the 13th Psalm because I think it is applicable for us right now at this point in time. When Jim said his prayer this morning in dismissal, I appreciate Jim's prayers. I appreciated Phil's prayer this morning. I appreciate when men of the congregation lead in prayers. I appreciate all the work and help that men do in service to this congregation. Yeah, there are areas we can improve on. All of us can. But I appreciate their efforts, very much so. But here in this particular prayer, it seems to resonate to what Jim was praying about. Because Jim talked about saber rattling and countries around us saber rattling. Jim talked about our leaders and maybe not always being people of character, and how right now he was appealing to God for help. In this Psalm of David, the same thing is true. It is a very short psalm, 6 verses long, each one comprised of two sentences, if you would, but very, very short. But in the course of them is a constant sense of repeat. Look at verse 1, and this will be repeated 4 times. How long, O Lord? How long is going to be repeated 4 times in this very short prayer. How long? That's something really we ask. When you go in for a procedure, you go to the dentist. How long is it going to hurt for? Well, I'm going to give you a shot and it ain't going to hurt long. Yeah, but that's not what I mean. After I'm done here, how long is it going to hurt for? I'm going to give you some medicine. It ain't going to hurt very long. How long? Next Monday, I'm going to go in and they're going to do ablation on my nerves in my back. And I don't ask how long anymore because I know I'm going to be given some vague answer. But I know about how long it's going to take. I'm going to lay down. They're going to get out this mystical, magical zapping tool that is designed to burn the nerves to destruction. It's going to take about 20 minutes. That's how long it's going to take. Now, my only question is, how long will it last, the removal of what they're trying to do? And that they can't answer. But we want to know how long. And more often than not, we want to know how long we're going to be in a state of discomfort. How long do I have to listen to you sing that song? Please don't. When I get in kind of a weird mood at home, I'll go around singing songs I make up. And I think they're great. But Linda goes, how much longer do I have to listen to this? The rest of the day. Oh, no, not that long. How long? When we drive cross country, we get out to places where the radio used to not play. Now we got satellite, so I don't get to sing as much. But she'd go, are you going to sing how long? When David writes this psalm, it's kind of that, an exasperation. I need to know how much longer I'm going to suffer. How long, O Lord, wilt thou forget me forever? Now, what he's saying, have you forgotten me? Have you forgotten what I'm about? Have you forgotten that I've come to you in prayer before? He's in anguish of heart. Again, I hope he doesn't mind me using him, but Jim, this morning, I was talking to him, and I was so wrong about where Jim and Kelly had gone. I thought they had gone to Mexico. I guess I had Mexico on my mind. They ended up going to Las Vegas. They had some free tickets and airfares they had to use over there. And I said, well, did you rent a car? And he goes, no. He said, I got off the shuttle that took me to the car rental place. And I looked at the line. I said, I'm not going to wait that long. And my question to him was, how long? How long would you have to wait? And he said, long enough for them to forget I was even in line. And that's kind of what David is saying here. I've been standing in line so long, you forgot about me. And we've all been there. We've all been there. This afternoon, just real quickly at lunch, Lynn and I got our meal most rickety quick. And the waitress asked me, she said, can I get you anything else? And I pointed over at Joy and I said, yeah, her meal. Power of my question. Boom, immediately, mystically, magically, another waitress appears and presents Joy with her repast, replete with applesauce, because she bought the kids' meal. So how long? Something we all want to know. But what David is really saying is, God, I think you forgot about me. Look as it continues on. How long wilt thou hide thyself from me, thy face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul? In other words, how long am I going to have to rely on myself and look inwardly in myself? And he's just crying out because of the vexation that's going on within him. Hold your finger here in Psalms and flip back over to the book of Revelation in the 6th chapter, and we're going to look at verse 10. And this, to me, summarizes the book of Revelation. What Joy was teaching for the ladies' class a few months ago. She called and we talked about it, and I pointed this out to her. I said, I think the book of Revelation is an answer to this question. That from this point on, this question is being answered for those that ask this question. How long? I'm reading in verse 10 of Revelation 6. How long, O Lord, holy and true, wilt thou refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth. How long? And then from this point onward, the book of Revelation lays out the limited judgment against those that are in power on the earth and the vindication of those that are righteous. But again, it comes back to that issue. How long? How much more? And so going on a little bit further, having sorrow in my heart all day long. I'm in 13:2 now of Psalms. How long will my enemy be exalted over me? Now, about this time is when David is on the run. Saul is pressing hard on him, but we can relate to it. We can understand it, and you can see the tie-in back into Revelation 6:10 at this point. Verse 3, he gets a little bit insistent. Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Well, he's saying the worry and depression has taken hold over me. And I'm really to the point of giving up. I'm at the point where I'm ready to just say enough is enough and I've had enough. That's kind of where he's gotten to. But when you read the book of Ecclesiastes, and this is, again, so wonderful, that Solomon writes, you can't give up. No matter what, you can't give up. And ultimately, David is going to come back around to that position. Now, when you begin to blend it all together with the writings of Job, and Job easily predates both David and Solomon. I put Job's writing back into the days even before the patriarchs. It's kind of where I put it. But Job is spot on because he's going through so much and he really wants to give up. His wife even says, curse God and die. But Job hangs on. And his friends ask him, why? Why are you hanging on? And as you look at through the book of Job, you wonder the same reason. Why? But he has a ray of hope. There is something greater, there is something grander. And that's why we hold on. And yeah, there's going to be some difficulties in life. There's going to be. But nevertheless, we hold on. We battle through. We have the resolve and the determination. In verse 4 of Psalms 13, lest my enemies say, I have overcome him. Lest my adversaries rejoice when I am shaken. Well, I don't want my enemies rejoicing over my weakness. I don't want them looking at me and saying, aha, we've bested him. See, what it tells me is that deep inside him, David is not yet beaten. Oh, he's going through depression. He's going through any number of different things. But inside there's this ember that if it's fanned and blown on and given a moment, it's going to catch fire. And sometimes that's what we have to do. People sit back and they look at what's happening in churches across the United States. And to be honest with you, many are discouraged. Many have said, I can't go on. I can't. And they don't. This past 18 months, unfortunately, and I can't see of a reason why, has been hard on a lot of people. I kind of know why, but I don't see why, if you know what I mean. I guess that's part of the 60s mentality coming in, not the 60s of years of age, but the attitude in the 60s that I'm not going to be beaten. I'm not. There's something greater and grander at work here. But I realize not everybody is of that mindset. But I challenge everybody to be of that mindset. And I do know that there are people that are watching or have been watching in Texas. I know that there have been people that watch this from Missouri, Florida, South Carolina, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, other states, Arizona. I know you've written me and told me you're tuning in. You don't always do it on Sunday. But here's the beautiful thing about YouTube. It's there for whenever somebody wants to join in. So I challenge you. Get the mindset that you're not going to be beaten. There is that ember that still grows within you. And if you see somebody getting depressed and despondent and ready to just simply say, I've had enough, don't let them do it. Don't let them. Be there for them. Listen to them. Talk with them. Encourage them. In 2 Corinthians, the first chapter, we're going to come back to Psalms. So you can either cheat and have two Bibles like I do, or you can hold your finger back here in Psalms and then flip over to 2 Corinthians, first chapter. Because in 2 Corinthians, first chapter, we find the flip side of what David is talking about. Verse 3, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort. That's what I want. I want the God of all comfort. And that's what David is saying back here in Psalms 13. I want the God of all comfort. But now here in 2 Corinthians, verse 4 now. Who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction, with the comfort which we ourselves are comforted by God. For just as the sufferings of Christ are ours in abundance, so also our comfort is abundant through Christ. We have comfort availed to us. We have comfort provided to us. And which comes back to us. You and I are how God works to provide that comfort in some instances. That we are, as it were, the ministers of God. That if Mary is struggling, that I should be there to listen for her and listen to her, to try to help her in any way possible. Same way with Dolores, Joy, everyone else. I have that responsibility. One of the things that was a challenge to me after I became a Christian and was going back to school to finish up some things, I did have a lot of credits in psychology, but I also had a lot in mass communication, process and theory. I had some in humanities. I had some in political science. I mean, I loved going to school. I truly did, and still would have. Could figure out a way to make $1 out of it. Don't take Haley's class if they pay me. They'd have to pay me to take Haley's class. It's economics. Why wouldn't they? But anyways, as I went back, I realized that as a Christian, what God's word has in store is greater than all the psychobabble that man has created. And that I would be doing a disservice to mankind if I did not offer to share this message. And so a lot of times I would have discussions with the various professors and others that I were interacting with. And they would say, yeah, I hear what you're saying. But what we're teaching here is traditional psychology. Well, don't you want people to get well? Yeah, we do. Maybe, kind of, sort of. But yet here's the comfort that God offers. Why wouldn't you put this out as a help to people? And they really never gave me a valid answer. But as we look at what people struggle with, we know that you don't need a degree to help people. We know that you don't need to have some kind of post hole digger lettering behind your name to help people. But by simply being a Christian, you can help others. And that's where I started this little talk this afternoon. And that's what Austin deals with when he talks about soft touches and how we just simply are the people God would want us to be and where it goes from there. And so now here's David back in Psalms talking about he needs comfort, he needs help. And then Paul coming along millennia later plus and says, well, here's how God's going to do it. He's going to do it through us interacting with one another. The soft touches. Those things that will mean something in the long run. So when he talks back here in Psalms 13:4, he is depressed. He needs somebody to comfort him. And quite honestly, the people that we interact with on a day-by-day basis, many of them are depressed. We live in a depressive society. And I would agree with what Austin said a couple of weeks ago. If it bleeds, it leads. And yeah, that's kind of behind the news business. We're looking for something that is sensational. We're looking for something that we can get people hooked on, that we can run for 3 to 5 days. That's the news cycle. And if we can find something that'll run 3 to 5 days, that's what we're going to go with. And the more sensational, the better. But what we want, and what this little thing that we're doing, and you don't need to move the camera because I'm going to be walking right back. This little thing that we're doing is not looking for sensationalism. It's, well, whoops, because it talks about the first murder trial. So if it bleeds, it leads. But no, in all seriousness, it was talking about this crucifixion of Christ. But if you look at the inner page, who I am makes a difference. And I would agree with that. Who you are makes a difference because you are a child of God. Which reminds me, Austin, we need to make sure we have the P.O. box on here. So I'll try to remember that next time the galley proofs come through. But we need to be mindful of that. Who you are makes a difference. And we can help people. And we help them in so many different ways. And sometimes you don't even know you're helping them. You don't even know when the comfort is there. And that's what we've learned recently and over the years. We were just simply being who we were supposed to be. Nothing more and nothing less. But let's flip back into Psalms 13. After having looked at 2 Corinthians 1 and the comfort, we pay it forward. We pay it forward. But now, in verse 4, we had talked about, I don't want my enemies to rejoice when I'm shaken. I don't want them to think that they've beaten me. I don't. I need comfort, yes, but I need that ember to come to full light. I need to be strengthened. I need to be built up. But now in verse 5, but I have trusted in thy loving kindness. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. The loving kindness of God is clear. It is evident. He has always wanted mankind to be saved. People talk about, well, the God of the Old Testament is not the God of the New Testament. What? He is one and the same. Behold then the kindness and severity of God. I understand that. But God has always wanted the best for mankind. Always. A reading of the 16th chapter of the book of Ezekiel is powerful. Because there God is looking at Israel. And he is lamenting the fact that Israel has beaten themselves. Because he said, on the day of your birth, nobody wanted you. But I took you and I washed you. I cared for you. I clothed you. Goes on talking about, I even put porpoise skins on your feet. And you can only imagine the softness of that. But I cared for you. But how did you repay me? You played the harlot. You played the harlot. But even more so, 16th chapter goes on. You paid others to consort with you. You're worse than them. But the 16th chapter continues. However, God said, I want you to come back. I want you to know how much I do love you. I want you to know how much I care for you. I want you to know that you are loved, and I want your salvation. From the time that man fell in the Garden of Eden, God always wanted the salvation of mankind. Everything he did pointed to the coming of the Christ. That when the Christ died, the blood went backwards and goes forward. And I know some theologians bristle at that simplicity. They want to peel the onion down more and have it more involved. But that's primarily what it is. My mindset is to make things as simple and as plain as they can be. And that's what I see here in this 13th Psalm. And then David goes on to write in verse 6, I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. I'm going to lift up my voice. I really enjoyed yesterday morning with the men. For a number of reasons. I enjoyed sitting around talking with the men and laughing and interacting with one another. But I think the thing that really resonated was afterward, and I mentioned it earlier today, the organic singing of a simple hymn that was spontaneous. Somebody had made a statement that was a part of a verse in a song. Another began to sing the song. And as that little snippet was sung, a couple others chimed in. And then the song continued on. We sang through, I believe, the whole first verse. Nobody had a songbook. None. We sang through the first verse and the chorus. And then we stopped. But it was great, the fact that it was so organic, that it was so spontaneous, and that here were men raising their voice in praise to God, one with another. Well, the song ended. We went back to doing what we were doing. And then one by one, the various men left. Austin had to take Bill and Gabriel home. And then the others began to filter out. But even as I think about Psalms 13 and verse 6, I'm sure for a long time that's going to remain with me. What happened yesterday? I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. So now that's that simple song, Psalm 13. But it is because of David's writing in Psalms, so simple, so plain, so direct, that it opens up for his son, Solomon, to write the following in introduction to the Proverbs. Now, in the Proverbs, Solomon uses a lot of couplets. Very rarely does he use triplets or anything of that nature to convey a thought. There are several trains of topics that he follows through here. But watch how he introduces his thoughts. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David. He immediately ties in, I am the son of my father. And my father was David. He gives credence and credit back to his father. Both men are naturally inspired and accept and acknowledge the inspiration of God. David would say, before there is a word on my tongue, thou knowest it, because thou put it there. Now, while God revealed through David and Solomon did not impact the style in which they wrote. And here is Solomon openly saying, what I got a lot of it from my father. To know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding, to receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the naive, to the youth knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase in learning, and a man of understanding will acquire wise counsel. To understand a proverb and a figure, the words of the wise and their riddles. Now watch how Solomon starts the book of Ecclesiastes. Again, by this time, Solomon is older. But watch the similarities. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Again, he's saying, I am my father's son. I am proud of that. I am honored of the fact that I am David's son. But as you go through the Proverbs and as you go through Ecclesiastes, the other thing that resonates is the relationship that now Solomon has with God. I know he talks about vanity of vanities, all is vanity in Ecclesiastes. A lot of people look at it and go, oh, I'm so depressed already. Why do you want me to read Ecclesiastes? Because in Ecclesiastes, we find a counterpoint. And while he does, I think it's 36 times, uses vanity of vanity, all is vanities. An equal number of times he talks about servitude to God. And he's saying in life you can find a balance. And the balance is the wisdom and knowledge of God. And we can find exactly what we're looking for. And we can take the message that these two men, albeit removed by us by millennia, we can take their message of hope and optimism and life to this world today and provide comfort and direction in all things. And so that's what we're being challenged to do each and every day that we live. Look down at verse 9 of Ecclesiastes 1. That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. So there's nothing new under the sun. We're basically the same people today that they were way back when. We're the same people. We face many of the same struggles. Oh, our toys have changed. But primarily, we're the same. We're the same. Well, that concludes it for this afternoon. And yes, I know I'm stopping a little bit early. But nevertheless, I hope you think on these things. And always to remember the words of David and the words of Solomon. And even that of Jimmy Dodd. Proverbs, they're so true. Proverbs tell us what to do. Proverbs help us all to be better Christians indeed. Notice the change? No longer Mouseketeer. But we do need to be Christians indeed. Well, the lesson is yours. Everybody that's here this afternoon has already put on Christ in the waters of baptism. But for those of you that are not with us, maybe you have a spiritual need. We would love to help you in any way. Simply looking at the scriptures. I'm sure that on this site, you can find my email address. The mailing address, as well as the street address, are undoubtedly posted. My phone number is posted, I'm sure. But there is always a way to get in touch with us.